Good evening and welcome everybody. Thanks for taking time out of your evening to join us for this public hearing tonight. Just to make sure you're in the right spot, this is a public hearing for two separate applications for riprap shoreline armoring along Lake Michigan in Casco Township of Allegan County. My name is Ryan Blazik. I'm with EGLE's Environmental Support Division. I'm just going to be your moderator tonight. Before we get too far, this is what our agenda is going to look like. We're going to start off with the introduction, which we're doing right now. And then the big thing to keep in mind is that this hearing is in two parts. The first part is going to be the informational session. That's where the applicant has an opportunity to present some information on the proposed project. And then there'll be a short question and answer session, which will take us to around 6:30. And then around 6:30 time, we'll have to move on to the hearing portion. And that's where everyone will have an opportunity to make a statement for the record on this application and project. We'll explain how to do that later, and everybody will have an opportunity to do so. And then we'll also cover who to contact for further questions. In case you haven't joined us for one of our hearings before that we've done virtually, all lines are going to be muted during this hearing. You'll be able to hear us, but we can't hear you. You can submit questions at any time using your Q&A box in your Zoom toolbar. We're going to save those questions, though, for the question and answer session. That's at the only time we'll be answering questions tonight. But you will have an opportunity, again, to make a statement. We'll explain how to do that later. And then just so you're aware, we are recording this hearing, and we're going to put that recording on our YouTube channel in a couple days, so you'll be able to watch it again or pass it on, or if you miss something, you'll be able to catch it again. All right, so at this time, I'd like our Water Resources Division staff to turn their cameras, mics on, and introduce themselves.
Thank you, Ryan. My name is John Byha. I'm an environmental engineer with the Kalamazoo District Office of EGLE. I'll be acting as a hearing officer tonight. With me is Kyle Alexander, District Supervisor, Kalamazoo District Office as well, and he's acting as a hearing panelist for us. And we also have Zach Chamberlain, Great Lakes Analyst, Field Operations Support Section, and he will also be acting as a hearing panelist to support me tonight.
All right, perfect. Thank you, John. Anything about the project before we move on with?
Oh, yes. Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Ryan, for the reminder. Yeah, I did want to mention we are doing something a little bit unique here in that we have two applications for very similar projects here. One's much larger than the other, but they're very similar in the same area as well. We opted to do one public hearing for both applications. They are essentially, again, very similar project, both for shoreline armoring along Lake Michigan, primarily to slow or stop some bluff erosion that's become very bad in this area. There's homes in danger and so forth. Our applicant here is being represented by an agent, Mr. Zach Vandenberg, Peterson and Vandenberg Environmental. He'll be talking a little bit more about the project.
All right, perfect. Thanks, thanks, John. And then thanks to all of our panelists for being here as well. We're going to unmute Zach. Let's see if we can get him on here. Are you there, Zach?
Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Great.
Perfect. Yeah, I've got your slides here. So if you just, I guess, let me know when you want to change slides. A couple quick things. It would be great if we could, this could be about 10-15 minutes max. And then also I noticed some of the captions were kind of smaller, so there, you might want to explain some of those if you need to elaborate on any of the captions that you have there for some of the diagrams.
Okay, no problem.
You can go when you're ready.
Great. Well, appreciate you guys putting this on. As John has been out there, it's a pretty dire situation out there. So trying to get something proposed here that meets the needs of the applicants, but also can be something that the nearby owners can be on board with. So if you want to go to the first slide. So this is a GIS aerial image of the shoreline in this area. I delineated the area that is owned by Casco Township in red. And then over top of that red in a green dotted line. It's a little bit tricky to see, but the green dotted area is going to be the proposed shoreline protection that is involved with this permit, or these two permit applications. So on the north side of Casco Township property, that's going to be the smaller shoreline protection project. And then on the south side, connecting Miami Park to Highfield Beach is going to be the larger of the two projects. So you can go to the next one. So I took some photos. I've been to this site. I got involved with this project probably about 8 months ago. I think I was there in November and then March. These are some photos that were taken in March when we were locating some features on site. This is looking from Miami Park's shoreline to the south. And then you can keep going. And this one is going to be from the project area looking north towards Miami Park's revetment that's already in place. As you can see, very unstable, no vegetation, multiple groundwater seeps coming out of these bluffs. It tends to happen with higher clay content, but you can go to the next one. Another view from the top. This again is looking from Lakeshore Drive near Miami, looking south towards the residences at the top of the bluff. You can go to the next one. And this one I thought was a good view. These photos were provided by one of the homeowners, and this one was taken on May 11th. And you can notice the mid bluff, there's some trees that are upright just on the other side of that stairway. And you can go to the next one. And this is a similar view, although it's from the bottom of the shoreline, but you can see those trees are now at the bottom of the bluff, almost into Lake Michigan. That was taken a day later. And it really shows that the conditions here are resulting in some pretty significant slumping events, and those slumping events are happening quickly. Next slide. This is a view from the water. It gives a good idea of how the project is going to be laid out with respect to the nearby areas. So you see on the left-hand side, there's the Miami Park revetment that is currently in place. Just to the right of that, you see a small gap that is a unprotected area that has been recently permitted. And then the larger gap going from Highfield, which is the revetment on the right side, that is where the project is proposed to connect from Highfield to the recently permitted shoreline protection project. Next slide. So this is probably what you were talking about, Ryan, with things being small. I apologize. This is the site plan for the south revetment. This is the bigger of the two projects. I'll go through some of these calculations or dimensions, if you will. This stretch of shoreline is approximately 450 linear feet. The revetment itself is proposed to be 35 feet wide. There is a 20-foot gap on the waterward side of the revetment to where the proposed temporary wave break is. That wave break consists of limestone that will ultimately be used in the revetment. It acts to break the waves first off, and it's also acting as a staging area. Then on the landward side of the revetment, it's not noted on this plan, or I guess it's noted, but it's not shown because it's not necessarily something EGLE regulates on this site, but there's going to be some grading that's done of the bluff face. And then on the landward side, it's hard to see on this plan, but on the landward side, just on the top of the revetment, there's going to be a flatter area that is similar to Miami Park's, that is going to allow for continued access for people to go north and south along the lakefront during times of high water. So that is the gist of the southern project. I believe if you go to the next slide, there's a section view. section view of the southern project. This is if you were to cut the project from the site plan and then look at it either north or south. I think this one's looking north. This shows some additional dimensions. You see the 20 feet from the revetment to the wave break. And then at the top of the revetment, there's that 8-foot wide walking area that will be a part of the proposed grading portion of the project. Next slide. This is the northern project, the smaller one towards the north side of Casco Township property. It's very similar. I did show an extent of grading on this one. It was very rough. Again, it's not something that EGLE necessarily regulates, but there is going to be some grading proposed on this project as well. The reason being that cliff-like conditions, even when you install shoreline protection, they still need to gain a stable angle naturally. So this grading is proposed to hopefully do that proactively. But this one is 120 feet in length. It's in front of 649 Lakeshore Drive. Similarly, it has that 8-foot wide access at the top. That on either side, on the north and south side, will have an ingress egress, if you will, composed of flatter limestones that'll be configured in a way that allows for people to continue to move north and south along the waterfront. Next slide. Again, a section view. It looks a little bit different from the other one. Honestly, that's probably just due to me drawing each one of these on a site-by-site basis. They all end up looking a little bit different, but the gist is the same. The revetment will be towed in. I forgot to mention that on the other one. That's where you dig down on the lakeward side of the proposed revetment in order to create a foundation for the rock structure itself. But again, 20 feet from the revetment to the wave break on a 3-on-1 slope for the revetment. And then at the top, like I said on the site plan, there's that walkway that goes north-south to continue to allow for public traffic. Next slide. And then I took some photos of the Miami Park. The goal on these projects is going to be having something similar to this on the top of the revetment for the walkway. There's a couple of these. If you go to the next one, it's just another view. Looking down. And then the next one. Sorry, this is going to be much quicker than 10 minutes. So this is a very rough rendering of not only the rock, but what is going to be proposed potentially on the bluff face. This is if you were standing in the water looking at the bluff. You see the rock at the bottom, the water below that, and then a switchback access going from the top down to the bottom with a few resting areas in between. Again, not something that EGLE regulates, but wanted to make sure that it was clear that something to this effect is going to potentially be proposed here as well. This is going to be on the southern portion, the larger revetment permit that's in process. The next slide. This is a similar rendering showing the existing bluff, and the rock is graded, or not graded, but it's kind of grayed out near the bottom. And then it shows that switchback that goes from the top down to the bottom. There also, and this one is a north-south walkway. Right now, there's a walking path that's right next to, it might actually be eroded at this point. I haven't been out there recently, but there was a walkway right at the top of the bluff. This is going to propose something similar. That's that top dark gray line that'll allow for that path to continue to be used once the project is complete. Also, not shown in these drawings, there will be some sort of dewatering system proposed to try to address the storm water or the groundwater seepage that's coming out of the bluff. In this case, there's two different reasons for the destabilization here. First and foremost is the toe erosion via wave action. What I see is that erosion starts the process, starts destabilizing the bluff face. The vegetation that is on the bluff face that was managing these groundwater seeps, once that is eroded from the wave action, and the bare soil is exposed, that's when the seeps start to play a larger role in ongoing slumping events. So something will be proposed in this case as well to try to address that groundwater issue as well. So I think that might be the last slide. Correct. So very brief, and I probably rushed through everything, but I think now is kind of the time to do questions. So.
You got it. Thank you for providing that information, Zach. Yeah, you're correct. We're going into the questions. So this is the point in the night where if you have a question, this is your opportunity to ask it. You can submit your question using the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. You just type it in, hit enter, send it to us, or you can click your hand icon at the bottom of the screen. That'll raise your hand in Zoom, and then we'll call on you, and we'll kind of take, if there are a lot of questions, we'll kind of bounce back and forth between the Q&A box and raised hands, giving you an opportunity to ask your question, and it'll just be, I will read them, or you'll read them you will read your question. If you have your hand raised, and we call on you of our panelists, and we'll answer them in turn. Also, it looks like we do have at least one or two people who are calling in by phone. You still have an opportunity if you're on the phone to ask a question. You just need to select #2 on your phone, and what that'll do is that'll raise your hand in Zoom, and then we'll call on you using the last 4 digits of your phone number, and we'll unmute you, and you'll have an opportunity to ask your question. And then the last thing I want to basically say before we get into this is not the part of the evening where you will make your statement. We're going to do that here in a little bit. We're just going to do the questions that anybody has. Are there any questions at this time? So again, just the Q&A box, and I have a comment. Somebody's happy to see the 8-foot path for walkability. And so what we'll do is we'll give it a couple more seconds, and we'll see if there are any questions. And if there aren't any that come up, we're going to move on to the next part of the evening, which we'll show you how to make a comment, the other ways to make a comment, and then we'll go into making your verbal comments for tonight. So we'll go a couple more seconds, and again, you'll see on your screen the ways we can make a comment, Q&A box, and raising your hand. And I'm still not seeing any raised hands or questions. So if there aren't any questions, got one that just came in. Is the revetment going to be even with existing revetment or built into the bluff?
Am I still on?
Yep, you're still on. Yep.
Okay. So the way that these are designed typically is they're designed to follow the toe of the bluff as closely as possible. So, and that's something that EGLE typically requires anyways. So when you have situations where there's an existing revetment, there's been quite a bit of erosion on the neighboring property that goes back further than that revetment. Typically in those cases, the new revetment will be pushed back to the toe and then connected in. So it's not going to be a straight line in this case. The revetment to the south, and I don't have it pulled up right now. The revetment to the south will be similar to the same location as Highfield. The goal is going to be to have one contiguous revetment from Highfield to Miami Park. But when you get to Miami Park, the revetment will have to tie in with what's there currently, but it will also have to follow the toe of the bluff. So it won't be a straight line, if you will.
Okay, I think that helps. Thanks for that question and for answering it, Zach. Are there any other questions in the audience before we move on? All right, going once, going twice. Right. All right, yeah, thanks again for that presentation, Zach. We're gonna go on to the next part of the evening, which is other ways to submit an official comment. All right, there are a couple different ways in case you didn't want to make a comment tonight, or in case you run out of time or think of something afterwards, or would just prefer to send something in writing. You can do it through MyEnviro. And because there are two applications that were submitted related to this, there are two MyEnviro links that you could submit comments to. If you know the submission numbers for the project that you want to comment on, you're welcome to enter your comments under the submission number. We have two. One is HPS ZFY9 V24JG, and the other one is submission number HPQ RQ P4 VQ4J8. But if you don't know your submission number, it doesn't. That's fine. Or if you submitted under the wrong one, whichever submission you submit, whichever file in MyEnviro, it'll go to both. So your comment will count towards both applications. So just so you're aware of that. And then you can also submit your comment by mail to EGLE, Water Resources Division, Kalamazoo District Office, 7953 Adobe Road. That's ADOBE Road, Kalamazoo, Michigan, 49009. And the comment period will be open until July 27th. And just so you're aware, we will be showing the screen again in case you need it later on. All right. Moving on. Actually, this is the part we're going to start the hearing portion. So, John, would you like to read the opening statement for us tonight? Oh, looks like you're muted, John.
Sorry, there we go. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, I will read the opening statement now. I'll go from there. Bear with me, everyone. This is a little bit long, but there are certain things we have to cover. So good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is John Byheim. I'm the district representative of the Water Resources Division of the Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy, or EGLE. I will be serving as a hearings officer for this public hearing on EGLE submission numbers HPS-ZF-Y9-V24JG and HPQ-RQP4-VQ4J8. With me tonight, as we introduced earlier, are Kyle Alexander, District Supervisor with the Kalamazoo District Office. He'll be acting as a hearing panelist. And Zach Chamberlain, Great Lakes Analyst, Field Operations Support Section, also acting as a hearing panelist for us. So to describe how this is going to work tonight, I'll begin with some background information about why we're here tonight. I'll then describe the purpose of the hearing and how your comments will be used. Following that, I will outline the procedure under which we will take your comments and then describe what will happen after tonight's hearing. There'll then be time for you to provide comments, and we will spend the majority of the time tonight listening to those comments. At the end of the hearing, I will read the closing statement. By way of background information, the Water Resources Division is responsible for administrating a variety of programs that help protect inland lakes and streams, wetlands, floodplains, sand dunes, and the Great Lakes. These programs regulate certain activities such as dredging or filling a lake, stream or wetland, constructing a dam, constructing a marina, placing shore protection or constructing docks, and building in a designated critical dune area, wetland, or floodplain. The law governing these responsibilities is the Natural Resources and Environmental Protection Act, 1994, P Act 451, as amended. Act 451 for short. We are here tonight because Archie Mascati, submission number HPS-ZF-Y9-V24JG, has proposed the following. Install approximately 450 linear feet of large riprap to form a sloping revetment at the toe of a badly eroding lakeshore bluff. This new revetment would tie into the recently permitted revetment to the north and the one to the south. The top of the new revetment will be at an elevation of approximately 594.3 feet IGLD 85 datum. place approximately 5,016 cubic yards of new riprap along the toe of the bluff over geotextile fabric, and will require approximately 1,555 cubic yards of dredging and excavation of native sand and clays. Access for the delivery of all materials and equipment is proposed via barge from Lake Michigan, and I will insert here a little bit of additional information. I understand that this has been changed, as Zach Vandenberg alluded to earlier. My application still says that we'll be accessing through Lake Michigan, so that's why it is included here. I understand, though, that the overland access will probably be proposed in the future. The proposed riprap revetment will be backfilled as necessary to stabilize the bluff with excess native material from the eroding bluff, excavations for the placement of the riprap, and approximately 577 cubic yards of clean imported fill. A temporary wave break of large riprap will be placed offshore to protect the site of the project during construction. They will restore, stabilize, and revegetate the lakeward side of the bluff with native vegetation when completed. Additionally, we are here tonight because Linda Johnston, submission number HPQ-RQ-P4-VQ4J8, has proposed the following: install approximately 120 linear feet of large riprap to form a sloping revetment at the toe of a badly eroding lakeshore bluff. The top of the revetment will be on an elevation of approximately 594.3 feet IGLD 85 datum. Place approximately 1,408 cubic yards of new riprap along the toe of the bluff over geotextile fabric that will require approximately 508 cubic yards of dredging and or excavation of native sands and clays. Access for the delivery of all materials will be proposed by a barge from Lake Michigan. Again, that's how it was initially proposed. I think that will be changing as we move forward towards a decision on this project. The proposed revetment, riprap revetment, will be backfilled as necessary to stabilize the bluff with excess native material from the eroding bluff, excavations for the placement of the riprap, and approximately 2,000 cubic yards of clean imported fill. A temporary wave break of large riprap will be placed offshore to protect the site during the construction. They will restore, stabilize, and revegetate the lakeward side of the bluff with native vegetation. In order for the permit to be granted, EGLE must find that the proposed activities described in the public notices meet certain criteria set by Part 325 Great Lakes Submerged Lands of Act 451. In general, we must consider the effect of the proposed project on the submerged lands of Lake Michigan and its near shore areas. When reviewing an application for permit under provisions of Part 325 Great Lakes Submerged Land of Act 451, EGLE is charged to make the following determinations as required by Rule 322.1011, Rule 11, 1C of Part 325, that filling, dredging, and placing spoil and other materials in the bottomlands shall be conducted in a manner which will cause the least damage to the public trust and least disruption of the littoral drift and longshore processes, enhance the public trust or interest, or mitigate damages. As part of that determination required by Rule 322.1015 of Part 325, approval shall not be granted unless the department has determined both of the following: that adverse effects to the environment, public trust, riparian interests of adjacent owners are minimal and will be mitigated to the extent possible. Part B that there are no feasible and prudent alternatives to the applicant's proposed activity, which is consistent with reasonable requirements of public health, safety, and welfare. The purpose of tonight's hearing is to give anyone interested in Archie Massacotti's and or Linda Johnston's shoreline armoring projects an opportunity to provide information that EGLE can use in making the decision whether or not to issue a permit for either of these projects or both. Please recognize that EGLE can only use the information you provide if it relates to the criteria that EGLE must use in making a decision. Some of you may simply want to express your support or opposition to the project. We'll be happy to make note of your position, but please understand that EGLE is, by law, not allowed to base their decision on whether or not there is widespread support or opposition to the project. In just a moment, I'll outline the procedures we use for taking your comments. But before I do so, I need to mention that the notice of this hearing was published in the commercial record on July 6, 2023. As we discussed at the beginning of the informational session, if you have a comment to provide, raise your hand in the Zoom toolbar. To ensure that the hearing is conducted in a fair manner, we will follow these steps. First, the applicant or their consultant has already had an opportunity to describe the proposed project. Second, we will then call on those who have indicated in their registration that they would like to speak. After that, we will call on all those that have raised their hands in their Zoom toolbar and that they would like to make a comment, and if they have not already been called upon. As a reminder, if you're participating in this hearing via telephone only, follow the directions of the moderator on how to identify that you would like to make a comment. You may also submit your comments to EGLE via the My Enviro portal, email, or US mail. When all the comments have been completed, we will ask if anyone else would like to make a statement. When your name is called, your microphone will be unmuted. As you begin your comments, please state your name and any group or association you may represent. Each person will be given 4 minutes to make their comments. We will indicate to you when you have about a minute left. Please begin wrapping up your comments and end within the allotted time. If need be, we will indicate when the time has ended. I ask that we all here be courteous and respectful to one another tonight. Please also recognize that EGLE staff is here tonight to provide a fair opportunity for you to express your comments on the proposed projects and to listen to those comments. The hearing is being recorded, and your comments will be part of the information that EGLE will consider in making its decision on whether or not to issue a permit for one or both of these projects. The public comment period for this public hearing is open for 10 days from the date of this hearing, ending on July 27th, 2023. Additional information and comments submitted in writing during the 10-day public comment period will also be considered in EGLE's decisions. Following the close of the public comment period, EGLE will make a decision on whether to issue a permit for one or both of these projects as proposed or with modifications, or send a letter of denial. You may find out that what the decision is by checking the EGLE My Enviro web portal site and searching for the application numbers HPS-ZFY9-V24JG and or HPQ-RQP4-VQ4J8. Thank you all for your attention. We will begin calling names of those who have indicated that they would like to make a statement.
All right, thank you, John, for reading that. Like John had said, I have a list of names who during registration indicated they wanted to make a comment. I have five names. We'll go through that list. I'll mention the name and then I'll mention who's up next, just so you have a heads up. And as John had mentioned, you have 4 minutes. I'll give you a minute heads up before you're out of time. And then once we get through this list, it'll be open to everybody else to make a comment. And you can just raise your hand in Zoom, or if you're on the phone, select #2 to raise your hand, and then I'll call on you. I'll unmute you, and you'll have to be able to unmute yourself and make your comment. A couple other quick things: so 1 comment per person. If you have somebody else on the line who would like to make a comment, let me know when you're making your comment. We can take theirs as well, and everybody will have an opportunity to make a comment tonight. So with that, we're going to go ahead and get started. First person is Archie Massicati, and then after Archie is Joseph Massicati. So Archie, you are unmuted on our end. You can unmute your microphone by selecting the microphone icon at the bottom of your screen and begin when you're ready.
Yeah, good evening. Thank you for having this hearing. I've been a property owner there for nearly 16 years, and we've enjoyed the area quite a bit, and we go up there with family and friends quite often. And as you could see in Zach's slides, the erosion is now approximately 8 feet into my property, along with Jim Hart's property. We are side by side. And doing nothing is not an answer here. We have to take a position here to stop the current erosion that's taken place, and more so for a safety factor. I've got grandkids, Jim's got grandkids, and they play in the front yard, and there's nothing to prevent them from sliding down or going down that bluff. If you go out to that site any given night on the corner of Miami, there are approximately 20 to 30 people that go out there every single night to watch the sunset. And we are watching cars that park along that way that I question sometimes whether or not they're taking a smart approach to where they're parking because of the erosion and when it does give way. it is still giving away. I mean, my fence is what you've seen at the bottom of that erosion. And even though that went down about a month ago, there's now dirt and clay that's now impacted over the top of that fence. So it's continuing, even though the lake has subsided. So what we need to do is take an approach, just as what Zach presented in the plan here. And I think what we've been presented with is an overall, we call it a comprehensive plan. And it's to the good of the entire community, not just Jim and myself and the rest of the homeowners there. This gives people the opportunity to continue through that walkway on the front of the property line and doing it in a safe way. The traversing down through the revetment there, I think, is an ideal solution that is good for the entire community, as well as the Stair Association that we're adjacent to. So I'm looking at roughly 105 feet in front of me, of which the Stair Association owns about 70 feet of that, 60 feet, somewhere in there. So there's the revetment that takes place from Highfield all the way to Miami Park is what's proposed. And that's what we would like to continue with. I know people are liking the area where there's an opportunity to go out to the beach. I'm not sure even with this being done, if we didn't do anything, there's not going to be any beach. So I don't think any opposition that would prevent this from occurring would prevent or allow a beach to occur.
You have
So
about a
I
minute,
would just
you have
like
about a
to-
minute left, Archie.
Okay, so I'd like to go on and just ask for your help in getting this over the wall. We're ready to start. We have a number of different iterations that we've looked at. And I think the proposal that's been put forth, a lot of work has gone into. And I think we don't have another solution per se that we can look at that would say do something different. And I think from the safety factor of what we're up against with the kids and everybody else, and to enhance the property for the entire community, I think this is the best proposed solution. So that's kind of where I like to end.
Yeah, thanks for your comments, Archie. All right, so after Archie, next up is Joseph Massacati, and then after Joseph is James Glass. So Joseph, you are unmuted and can begin when you're ready.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood the form. I have nothing else to add besides what Archie's already commented on.
Okay. Yep, thanks for letting us know.
Thank you.
All right, so next up is James Glass, and then after James is James Hart. So James, you are unmuted. You can begin your comment when you're ready.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity in order to be able to be part of this meeting. I am also a neighbor. I own property on 635 Lakeshore, which is just to the north of the property that Archie just talked about, and to the south of where Linda Johnson's property is. I have been quite thoroughly investigated the proposals that both of them have put forth, and I think it's a great benefit to the entire community because they're allowing for access along the top and the bottom, which I think is a great benefit for the rest of the community. Currently, the property has eroded so far into Archie's property and to the property to the south that there's no longer an ability for the members of the Miami Park that is to the south of Miami Street to be able to even get to where the stairs is without taking a almost a mile-long detour. So I'd like to stress my support for this proposal. I think it's a great benefit to the entire community, and I think the proposals as they're put forth is also taken into consideration of the access at the lake level, which we lost when Highfield built their stairs or their revetment and didn't allow for steps. And so that took the ability for us to walk to the south away. And I think this proposal actually solves that problem also. And that has been taken into consideration by both of the applicants on the proposal that they put forth. So I'd like to once again say I'm firmly in favor of this project.
Yeah, thanks for your comments, James. All right, next up is James Hart, and then after James Hart is Douglas Nickerson. So James Hart, you are unmuted. You can begin when you're ready.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity. I would like to reiterate or support everything that Archie and Jim have said. We are in favor of this plan 100%. Right now, our biggest concern is the health and safety of the people that are in Miami Park, especially those people who are traversing across the property along the edge of what used to be Lakeshore Drive. And it's a concern of ours. So we see this as an opportunity to correct, the situation as it stands today and provide all of Miami Park a wonderful solution that should hopefully last, a number of years. So thank you for the time, and hope you approve the permit.
All right, thank you, James. The last person I have on my list is Douglas Nickerson, and then after Douglas, we are going to go to anyone else who would like to make a comment. You just have to raise your hand in Zoom using the icon at the bottom of your screen, or if you're on the phone, select #2. So with that, Douglas, you are unmuted on our end. You can unmute your microphone when you're ready and begin.
I'm ready. Can I start?
Yep, you're ready. Go ahead, Doug.
Okay, and I too am in favor of doing something on this bluff. The proposal that was originally put out, which is the only thing we've seen, requires it's highly dependent on the stair association for both support, and it's dependent on us. I'm a resident of Miami Park. I'm the vice president of the Stair Association. We were not addressed before this proposal was put out, so it kind of came as a surprise. What I noticed originally on this thing was that it seems like a good idea. But as an engineer, I've got to look at it and say, well, how are we going to implement this? Pictures are nice, but there has to be a lot of planning that goes on behind it. To this end, I met with what was then, and I believe still is, their preferred contractor, who would be Brian DeBest, to find out how he would implement this plan. First thing I know is what Zach showed as their typical revetment would be proposed by a company called I believe it's Whitewater. This is not the way Brian DeBest would do it. So he would do it from bringing all the materials over from the land side. So I met with him about 8 weeks ago to find out the detail of how he would approach this. And one of the things, number of things that I found out along the way is the distance from Archie and Jim Hart's property line, front property line, to the line that would be out to the toe of the bluff is 162 feet. This information was provided to me by a firm, Mitchell and Morris, who do surveying in around South Haven. And this survey was done about a month ago that they surveyed the property. It seems to me that with 162 feet of bluff to work with, we should be able to reach a compromise that meets everyone's needs and desires. I put together my notes from my meeting with Mr. DeBest.
You got about 1 minute left, Douglas.
Okay, into a report which I furnished to the Stair Association, the rest of the members of the board. And I'm proposed an alternative that says we leave a modest 20 feet of beach. Then we build the protective revetment with a 10-foot walkway on top of it. And this would leave the bluff with a 31-degree slope, which is a very nice slope. In order to do this, I am requesting that when you issue a permit to these people, and I presume you will, that you put the statement in there that no part of a revetment should be allowed closer to the water's edge than 40 feet on a calm day when the lake is at its mean level of 579 feet above sea level.
And
This should, again, pretty much satisfy everyone for a protective environment, for a protective revetment, and leaving a beach.
you're
Thank
out of time, Douglas, so it'd be great if you could wrap your comments up.
Okay, I'm wrapped up. That's it.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for making those comments. All right. All right, is there anybody else who would like to make a comment, who hasn't yet made a comment? If so, just feel free to raise your hand in Zoom, and you can do that by selecting the raise hand icon. You'll see at the bottom, it looks like a hand, just select that. Or if you're on the phone, and we do have at least one phone in caller, you can select #2 if you'd like to make a statement. We'll give you a couple seconds here to see if we have any raised hands. If we don't, then we will move on to the next part, which is I'll show you again the other ways to make a comment if you'd like. And then if there are any additional questions after tonight, I'll provide you with that contact information as well. So I am still not seeing any other raised hands. And if we don't have anybody else tonight who would like to make a comment, we're going to read the closing statement. So John, would you like to read the closing statement for tonight?
I would, yes. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you for your comments and cooperation. We appreciate your interest in the proposed projects and that you took the time to be here tonight. As indicated at the beginning of the hearing, you may submit additional written comments until July 27th, 2023. Following the close of the public comment period, we will consider all comments received to make a decision on the proposed projects. Just to remind those that may still want to submit a comment, comments can be submitted via My Enviro portal, email, or US mail. The hearing is now closed. Thank you again.
All right, thank you, John. Yeah, as John mentioned, you are still able to make some follow-up comments if you'd like through My Enviro. Those links are going to be put in the chat again here to make those comments, and whichever file you make the comment under, it'll be counted for both, so you don't have to worry about getting the correct one. But if you do know the correct one, feel free to enter it. Or by mail to Eagle Water Resources Division, Kalamazoo District Office 7953 Adobe Road, Kalamazoo, Michigan 49009. And just to reiterate, as John had said, the comment period will be open till July 27th.
Yeah, Ryan, could we go ahead and stick my email address in the chat too, just for those that don't want to deal with the My Enviro? Thank you.
Yep, it's right here. Here is John's email. And we'll put that in the chat as well. And you can talk, if you have further questions, you can contact John. That's John Byha, environmental engineer. Phone number is 269-568-2680. I'm just reading these off for people on the phone. John's number is 269-568-2680, or by email at bayhaj@michigan.gov. And again, that's bayhaj@michigan.gov. All right. And that about wraps us up. But first, I'm wondering if you have any final comments for us, Kyle?
Thank you, everyone who came up today and commented. We appreciate the participation.
All right. Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you all for participating in the hearing tonight, for all of our panelists. Last thing I'll leave you with is there will be a closed caption recording of the hearing posted on our YouTube channel in a couple days. So it will be available at that time. And with that, I hope you all have a great rest of your evening, and thanks again.